Oh, wow. What's up? Is the only way the United States government can raise money is by selling treasury bonds, or are there other tools to do it? God, I read a conspiracy yesterday and I want it to be true, okay? Just because it would be base as f, but I don't know. I don't want to buy into the hype if it's not true, okay? G7 chair Canada speaks to Japan and EU about market stability. Follow me for like 5 minutes. It's going to be boring, okay? Canada, chair of the Group of 7 advanced economies, is working with Japan and the European Union to maintain global stability in financial markets and the financial system. Canada's Ministry of Finance said on Wednesday, as many of the world's top finance leaders are on heightened alert for signs of deeper market upheaval following the Trump administration's tariffs blitz. So the G7 countries have been talking to each other about how to deal with the U.S. tariff situation, okay? I still don't know too much about treasuries, but I read a little bit about them yesterday. I feel like if interest rates go up, then it's good. If interest rates go down, it's bad. I guess that's like my intuitive feeling, but it's counterintuitive. It's the other way around. So I think the way that it works is if the U.S. government wants to sell a treasury bond, okay, when you buy a treasury bond, you buy it and it agrees to pay you back, with interest over some period of time. So if I buy a 10-year bond at some percentage interest rate, then I get that much money in cash, when it matures. However, if other people come to the market and they sell their bonds that they're holding, the increase in bonds on the market means that there's less of a demand for those bonds, meaning the Treasury has to issue debt at a higher interest rate to attract people to actually buy it, right? If a bunch of people go to the market offering to sell their bonds, well, if you're going to buy it from the U.S. Treasury, then they have to increase the interest rate they're offering for you to buy the debt, right? So in this way, this is my understanding, for higher interest rates on Treasury bonds are bad for the United States because it means that there's just not much of a demand for U.S. Treasury bonds at a lower interest rate, so they have to up the interest rate. They have to up the interest rate more and more. So there's an increase in the yield, okay? So this guy's supposed to be super smart. I listened to him talk before, and now my brain has already been massively eroded listening to U.S. leaders talk, who all sound like the equivalent of like a downy fucking special ed grade school student, okay? So I don't know if he's actually smart or if I'm just so used to hearing stupid U.S. leadership that whatever. But this guy supposedly is really, really, really smart. Ignoring even his educational background, which is, I think, supposed to be really impressive. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada through like the financial crisis. He was the governor of the Bank of England for 7 years. He's just supposed to be really intelligent when it comes to economics and, I guess, global finance. The conspiracy memes that I've read are that Canada got together with the other G7 countries and pointed out to those countries that the only possible way that Trump could ever maintain his current path is going to come with big interest rate cuts at the Federal Reserve. We have to push down interest rates, we can reissue debt, sell new debt, and it'll be good for America. And that supposedly, with Carney saying things like, we're looking past a world without American cooperation, or we're forging a new future ahead, that the idea is that Carney basically told people for Japan, which is the number one foreign holder of U.S. debt, the UK has $740 billion, and Canada has $350 billion. And basically made Japan, the UK, and Canada are aware that if they were to start flooding the market with U.S. treasuries that it will destroy the dollar and it will drive up what the interest rates that the Treasury has to pay significantly in order to issue any new debt. And that this quiet move in the background, I think starting with Japan selling off U.S. treasuries, is what forced the Trump admin to completely 180 and do this 90-day pause on everything except for the tariffs on China. I don't know if this is true or not, but I read this and I want it to be true. The pause is still 10% though? True. But you want it to be true because it would mean someone has enough influence on Trump to make him not suicide the country? Well, no, it would show a level of coordination and macroeconomic understanding that means that there are other countries that could apply a lot of pressure onto U.S. economic policy in a way that even Trump can't ignore. So it would explain why they dropped the EU tariffs despite them retaliating. Yeah. Is that why bond yields are going crazy the other day? Supposedly, Japan started to dump their treasury bonds. But I want to... Somebody needs me to give me more info on this because I don't want to be... I'm trying to... Fuck. Bro, my Reddit account has to be glitched. Every time I save a post, it doesn't show up on my fucking account. And it's triggering me. Fuck. I feel like I read that that Carney said explicitly, this would be crazy if he did, that he was not going to negotiate any new deals with the United States until after the election as well. Is that true? Find me a source on this. I just mean to, I read a whole schizo theory, so I want to make sure that I'm not like, that I'm not just buying into the story because it's very sexy. Hold on.
Is looking to fundamentally restructure the international trading system. And just yesterday, he announced a pause on what is called a global set of reciprocal tariffs for all countries but China. And while that's a welcome reprieve for the global economy, the impacts of other tariffs and the threat of future tariffs are already being...
The election is in a few weeks. Even if the election is soonish, it's a pretty big dick move if the United States is running around with these insane tariffs and threats to the global economy for a guy to the north of the United States to come out and say, we're not negotiating shit with you until after our elections, so sit the fuck down and wait. It would be if he really said that, but I just want to, let me just listen to him.
Felt around the world and here at home. So the stakes have never been higher for our economy. In light of the evolving situation, after today's campaigning, I will return to Ottawa. I will convene a meeting, including the Minister of National Defence, our Committee on Canada, U.S. Relations and National Security tomorrow. In Canada, there are tariffs that remain in place. Those tariffs are threatening our families, our workers, and our businesses. And while they have been imposed under different pretenses, they all are unjustified, unwarranted, and misguided. So we've been responding, and we are responding with purpose and force. We will fight, we will protect, and we will build. We have agreed to begin negotiations between the Prime Minister and the President immediately following the election, and we will ensure that the ground for those negotiations...
I'm so stupid. Fuck! There's more on macro econ I wish I knew. Okay, because this is a really good counter argument. No one's ever brought this up to me before. Sorry, hold on. I never thought about this before. It like it's an even stronger argument for stuff that I've argued in the past, and I just didn't, because I wasn't aware of the structure, I guess. One of the things that people talk about a lot are the U.S. trade deficit, okay? So United States, country over here, we buy $600 billion worth of stuff, and we only sell $400 billion worth of stuff, okay? So the Trumples and every other dipshit on the internet goes, oh my God, we're losing all of our money to these other countries. We're subsidizing them. Dumb shit like this. The one way that I would always talk about this trade balancing, there's a couple things. One is you could just hold USD. It's a nice currency to hold. You can trade in it. You can do a lot of things with it. Or two, I would say a lot of this money makes its way back to the United States in the form of reinvestment. So you can either reinvest this money by investing in companies in the United States, or another thing that I didn't consider is you can just buy U.S. Treasury bonds, which help fund our government. So countries that run large trade deficits with the United States have the opportunity to buy U.S. Treasury bonds as well with I guess some of the excess money, which helps to fund our government and keep everything going. So if we're going to war with all these countries that have a trade deficit with us, that feels like a pretty scary situation, because you're going to war with a set of countries that theoretically can pull the trigger on the destruction of your economy without realizing it, if they are holders of huge U.S. debt. It is interesting to me as I look and I see these countries that have massive amounts of U.S. Treasury bonds. I don't know what the United States would do if a lot of these countries just started to offload. Like if Japan were to seriously, with $1 trillion, I think with $1 trillion of U.S. Treasuries, if Japan were to start unloading these, or China, the UK has $740 billion worth, Canada has $350 billion worth, Mexico has $100 billion worth. If these countries were to start unloading Treasury bonds, I don't know what the U.S. could possibly do, because there's no possible way that we could issue debt at a lower, there's no way that we could issue debt without having to bump the interest rates a ton. The Cayman Islands is the UK. Oh, is it? Is it Cayman or Cayman? It's Cayman, right? Oh, so the UK has over $1 trillion of US debt. Jesus Christ. I'm stupid, but can't the US just say that we won't pay that debt? Don't even say that. Don't even fucking say that. Don't say that. Because my response to you is that that's an inconceivable scenario that would never happen. But we're in the world of inconceivable scenarios, so who knows? If the United States were to say no to paying back like a printed treasury bond, it would be the end of the USD. I don't even know what that would, but I don't know if the Trump admin could even do that. I don't even know, but we're in an unprecedented world where we have 135% tariffs on China. But that can't, if that would happen, it would just be a catastrophe. Destiny also, how will this affect the spending bill? Will we in the U.S. not have the money to spend for government stuff? Well, the issue is, the scary part is just getting into a runaway debt situation that you can't control. So if the United States is going to negotiate a spending bill, the conservatives were talking about raising the debt cap by another $8 trillion or $4 trillion. So if the United States is going to do another budget with another $1 trillion budget deficit, then that's another $1 trillion of debt that the Treasury has to issue. And if interest rates are higher on bond yields because other people could dump them, then that means that the new debt that the U.S. issues is going to be at an even higher interest rate than it'd like it to be, which means that our debt payments and the interest payments on the debt are going to be even higher than they should be. So you get into a very bad runaway situation. If you can combine that with, now, I don't know, like in one way you can have like runaway horrible financial situations, but in other ways, international markets are adaptable and there's a lot of stuff you can do, I think. But I imagine at some point you could run into this runaway scenario where a lot of stuff for the United States, the problem is that I can't, the problem is that I can't, we take so much for granted, okay? And so much of what exists in reality is stuff that we take for granted. personally, I feel like a lot of financial stuff in the United States is built on the assumption that, like Biden said, it's always bad to bet against the United States, that the U.S. economy will continue to grow. It will continue to innovate. It will continue to persevere. We will bring the brightest students in the world here. We're no longer doing that. We're funding innovative scientific research and technological advancements. We're cutting funding for that. We have free trade with the rest of the world. We're now opposed to that. Okay? We're fostering the most productive labor force ever. Now we want factory workers, right? So if the United States economy is the world's leading economy and will continue to grow indefinitely into the future, debt can be bad-ish, but we can always issue debt because it's always bad to bet against the U.S. economy. But if all those other things go out the window, then I feel like you run into a situation where it could be, oh shit, the U.S. has a huge budget deficit. That's fine. Let's issue new debt. Okay, well, that's kind of annoying. We have to issue it at a higher interest rate, but whatever, we can do that. But if you combine all of that with a couple quarters of GDP contraction, when the rest of the world is not having the same issues, theoretically, and then it doesn't look like that situation is going to improve, I think you could get into like a runaway, horrible scenario where all of a sudden you're in 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters of contraction. Issuing new debt is incredibly fucking hard. We have no capacity to cut spending in the United States. Less contraction means less revenue, means more borrowing because our budget is going to grow even more out of control because we can't raise enough money. And then all of this it's a death spiral. But traditionally, this kind of death spiral, in my opinion, can't happen to the United States because the U.S. economy is always growing. The U.S. can always issue new debt. USD is world's reserve currency, strongest currency in the world, so stable, backed by so much. But if we start removing everything, it feels like it feels like this. Fuck, who's seen this show?
28 minutes past midnight.
Oh my God, is this upscale to 60 FPS? Don't ever do this. I don't know where this trend started, but please, God, fucking stop. Please stop. Is Jader here? If you work for a company that does this, I'm blanket IP banning all of your offices, okay? I don't even want you watching my stream. Whoever does this disgusting frame interpolation shit, fucking stop. Please, God. Sorry. Anyway, fuck, we don't have to watch it, but... He goes through all the different factors of like, how does an RBMK reactor work in terms of how does the nuclear reaction sustain itself and balance out the temperatures on both sides. And at one point, like the nuclear reactor it just seems like it's stalled a million different ways and there's no possible way that it can explode because all of the balances are on one side. But then as soon as like one thing gets added and then a couple other things are stripped and then that causes two more to come on the others, like it feels like that. Yeah, I don't know. All of this is like it's weird to talk about this because all of this is just stuff that doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen. There's no way to make a normie understand like how catastrophic Trump is to the economy right now and to the world financial order because people just don't understand how much we've benefited from it. It's very fucking frustrating.
We will build. We have agreed to begin negotiations between the Prime Minister and the President.
Well, the scene doesn't work with your explanation. What do you mean it doesn't work with my explanation?
Immediately following the election, and we will ensure that the ground for those negotiations is constructive while we stand firm with our workers, protecting our workers, and building this economy. Look, we in Mexico have a very tight trading relationship with the United States as a consequence of NAFTA and its successor agreement, CUSMA, USMCA as the Americans call it. And so any adjustment to that is a reduction in the market access and the degree of trade, which is why we have responded. So that's the situation we're in. We look forward, as the Americans call it. And so any adjustment to that is a reduction in the market access and the degree of trade, which is why we have responded. So that's the situation we're in. We look forward to the opportunity for Canada and the United States to have that comprehensive economic and security negotiation.
Are those amounts bonds that the governments of these countries own or the private businesses and people within them? My guess is it's going to be large institutional investment things is my guess. I don't think it'll be the governments proper. I think it's going to be large investment groups in those countries, but they're probably going to roughly follow like what's good or bad for the country just because that's what the financial indicators would dictate, would be my guess. Oh, Metalloid says central banks do own a lot of it, but
I'm working hard every day to represent Canada at those
Okay, apparently it's 50-50 private-public ownership of foreign debt, or of debt issued to other countries.
those discussions. And I'll say one last thing, if I may, which is, and I've mentioned this in my remark, the stakes have...
It seems like a lot of this Trump BS is based off the belief that the U.S. is going to go broke. I find that hard to believe. Is there any truth to it? No. Trump has no understanding of economics or finance. I'm not even fully convinced that he understands personal economics or personal finance, just based on his business history. Trump is not an economist. He doesn't know anything about economics. And when he talks about like the U.S. going broke, it doesn't make any sense. All of it is retarded. And I'm going to stress this, and other people have been saying this, okay? Do you know who Stephanie Kelton is? She's an MMT proponent. No one cares about MMT. I don't care about MMT. Stop asking about MMT. No one cares, okay? It's bullshit. No one cares, all right? Go do financial astrology somewhere else, okay? Nobody cares. All right. Fuck. Okay, wait, what was the question? Oh, the country's not going broke. Even if it was, okay, the issue, and other people have been bringing this up, and it's a good talking point and people need to bring this up. Even if it was the case that the United States is going broke, okay, let's say that you're on Interstate 80 and you're trying to decide which fork in the road you want to go down, or you're on the interstate, you go to, some other interstate. I don't fucking know what I'm saying. You're driving, you want to go either this way or this way. Let's say that you realize, okay, let's say that you're 2 miles down this road, okay, and then you realize, oh shit, we actually should have gone this way. We needed to go this way. We need to take a left and not a right. What the Trump admin is doing is the equivalent of saying, oh, we're going the wrong way. Let's stop and turn around, and driving the car into a fucking brick wall. That's the equivalent of what the Trump admin is doing. Even if you think that the U.S. is on a bad path, or that the U.S. needs to do something to manage its debt, its economy, protect some industries, even if you agreed with every single end goal with the Trump admin, you would not be doing it in this way because it is catastrophic and it's not even getting you to your optimal endpoint. Why doesn't anyone care about MMT? Too novel? Because all MMT did was take current understanding of economics, go onto the internet, and then just say, print infinite money, and it's absolutely fucking based, and we're going to make a whole bunch of new novel statements about economics. Half of the statements aren't novel. They're already incorporated by other forms of, by other basic economic understandings. And then the other half of the claims are fucking retarded that libertarians and other dipshits run on the internet too, and they spam it all day saying that we can issue infinite debt, and LOL, wouldn't that be epic? Nobody cares, okay? Everybody that goes online and talks about MMT has the most retarded shit to say about econ, all right? Stop. Explain quantitative easing, please. No, because I don't understand it. Apparently quantitative easing has something to do with issuing new currency. I don't know how. I don't understand it exactly, but we started doing it for the first time, I think, in 2007, but I don't fully understand it.
Without me. All right, buddy.
Canada and the United States to have that comprehensive economic and security negotiation. I'm working hard every day to represent Canada at those discussions. And I'll say one last thing, if I may, which is, and I've mentioned this in my remarks.
What if we've been on the wrong road? I hate conservatives right now. I'm so sorry. My heart is just filled with rage right now. That 150 billion number just keeps popping up over and over again in my head, and it's actually triggered the fuck out of me. I'm like beyond all triggered. The fact that disgusting, fat fucking seal-looking slob South African shouldn't even be in this country anymore, Elon Musk, had the audacity to stand up at that meeting and clap his fucking flippers together for bragging that they could maybe find, he said $150 billion, when this disgusting slob fuck fakes his PoE 2 and Dota gameplay, fucking loser, the easiest video games of all time. This autistic, IVF addicted retard couldn't even fucking play it correctly, okay? For this guy to come up and brag about saving an order of magnitude less than what he promised us in 1 year, and the fact that no conservative cares, this fucking retard said $1 to $2 trillion of saving, and he comes away with $150 billion in budget cuts. Give me a fucking break. The increase in funding to the Pentagon alone this year outweighs the savings that he purports that they're going to find. He purports that they're going to find. What an unimaginable walk back. 150 billion, and this guy said $1 to $2 trillion. It is a level of incompetence that is It's not even staggering, because staggering implies you're still at least moving in some direction. It's flailing aimlessly on the ground. It's unbelievable to me that he could say that and not immediately retreat into the deepest, darkest cave in the world and to hide from the sunlight of just being... Is 150 billion confirmed? No, nothing's confirmed. And if he does save 150 billion by the end, it's just going to be in cutting programs that they didn't like. There was no waste, fraud, or abuse. Apparently, the U.S. federal government is literally the most efficient fucking machine in the history of the entire fucking planet, because they couldn't find any budget cuts anywhere, or they couldn't find any waste, fraud, or abuse. I couldn't believe it. I thought there was going to be some waste, some fraud, some abuse, and we come away with apparently the world's smartest fucking ketamine addict. Can't find anything? Constant typos, constant budget mistakes, constant corrections on their stupid fucking forms. These dipshits created a new wrapper for information that was already coming out of the government anyway, that we could all see online anyway, and the wrapper is exploitable. Some people are able to write to the database on the website. I thought at least they could do tech. I thought they could do tech right. At least that. And they asked ChatGPT to make a website that gets cracked in 2 days. Unbelievable. It's everything. It's just such a joke. I don't care.
Well, thanks to your fantastic leadership, this amazing cabinet, and the very talented Doge team, I'm excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. $150 billion after all that shit talk, after all that hype of, I think we could save $1 trillion. $1 trillion. I don't actually know how you do ketamine. Wait, is ketamine a pill or a fucking needle or what? How do you do ketamine?
Mark.
Sounds like a thing you would inhale from an inhaler. While campaigning for Donald Trump during the 2024 presidential race, Elon Musk had promised he could slash $2 trillion from the federal budget. After Trump took office and tapped Musk to lead the so-called Doji, that estimate dropped to $1 trillion in the upcoming fiscal year. And now he says he's excited to announce that he anticipates savings in 2026 by $150 billion. Which is also going to be a lie, by the way. Increase, wait, new Pentagon budget? Am I making this up that they asked for a $200 billion increase, or... What was the last Pentagon budget? Trump has announced he will seek a $1 trillion budget for the Pentagon, a record-setting number that would mark the highest level of U.S. defense spending since World War II. Prior Pentagon budget. For last year, it looks like this is saying it was $880 billion. So all of the money that Doge, which was supposed to single-handedly flip our budget deficit, all of that money is wiped away just by the increase that he's looking for in the Pentagon budget. All of it is wiped away just by that one thing. And that's not even counting how much money, because all of our budget projections right now and our deficits right now are projected with the Tax Cuts Jobs Act, with the Trump tax cuts ending at the end of this year, which they're pushing to extend. So what the fuck? What the fuck? What are we doing here? None of the math is mathing. This is retarded. It's actually so fucking stupid. Meanwhile, we're looking at unprecedented economic contraction, potential dumping of U.S. treasury bonds from other countries, global trade wars, divestment in domestic research and education, deporting people back from rich country, or deporting people that have money? Why are you deporting students? These are probably coming from the richest, most privileged fucking families in the world. Why would you deport people that are here to study? It's actually so stupid. It's so unbelievable to me. Art of the deal. It's unreal. $45 billion to expand immigrant detention? We've gone from having illegal immigrants that are working in and supporting our economy to now just turning them into an economic and fiscal drain to pay for housing them?
I just wanted to finally ask about Doge and get a ballpark figure from you there as well. How much do you expect Doge is going to be able to cut annually? If you can't give a 2025 number, what do you think it'll look like in 2026? Because that obviously can also help to offset any tax cuts.
That's right. So in addition to some of the things that we're looking to negotiate with Congress in terms of mandatory spending reductions, a lot of the efficiencies that Doge is identifying are going to help us submit a budget to Congress that's going to have reductions in discretionary spending, because as we modernize our systems, as we look for efficiencies in the way that we deploy the federal bureaucracy, as we reduce the scope and scale of government's intervention into the private economy, we are going to bring down the cost of government. Just in the Treasury Department alone, we are looking at billions of dollars in efficiency realizations. And so Doge is going to keep working for another couple of months, and we're going to add those up. I would not at all be surprised if it's on the order of $50 billion a year that we can realize in cost reductions. And so once you project that over the entire...
50 billion. Wait, sir, 50 billion? 50 billion? 50 billion? Excuse me. Sir? When you match with a guy on Tinder and he says he's 6'2", well, 50 billion? I was promised $2 trillion of savings that turned into $1 trillion of savings.
That we can realize in cost reductions, and so once you project that over the entire...
50 billion. Mm-hmm. I thought we were looking at like 500 billion a year in cuts from Doge. I mean, the original...
I'm just talking about on the discretionary side. In addition to that, there...
Yeah, it's called discretionary. Are you going to cut non-discretionary spending? Can we bring Mr. Merriam-Webster into this debate to explain what that fucking means?
Another one of their big ideas, or one of their big...
Because non-discretionary means what? Are you cutting Social Security? Medicare? What are you cutting here? What part of the non-discretionary are you touching? Please say it, sir.
In addition to that, there's another one of their big ideas, or one of their big agenda items, is to look at all the waste and fraud that GAO has identified. They identified that there's $200 to $300 billion a year.
I'm sorry. I just want you... I need you to understand that you're becoming the extra bureaucratic layer that everybody makes fun of, and that you made fun of, and that you said you were trying to get rid of. Why would we need another group to come in and look at what the Government Accountability Office has already fucking found. Why would we need some other dipshit, some other ketamine-addicted, brain-rotted dipshit to come in and talk to us about what another organization has already found, another part of the government has already found? What's the point of that?
And fraud that GAO has identified.
So it's not even Doge identifying it? It's just coming in and looking at what's already been identified? Then what the fuck was the point of Doge?
Identified that there's $200 to $300 billion a year in improper payments. So if we find...
So you're telling me that the Government Accountability Office has already identified more waste, fraud, and abuse than Doge is even promising in the entirety of their existence for their whole mission?
Find ways to utilize systems to reduce improper payments. There's potentially hundreds of billions there.
And I can't tell also, and I don't know, it might just be that I'm in a world of 75 IQ retards. That could be the case, and I'm the only man, okay, with 104 IQ. I'm sorry, where are the business people in chat or anybody that does anything? You guys hear the scam talk, right? Can you hear when somebody is speaking in scam, right? Like, hey, how are you going to save my business money? We're going to identify key efficiencies, and we're going to look at ways to utilize new systems so that we can increase the efficiency and cut down on the bad payments. That's really good, my dude. Why don't I just fucking hire this guy? Like, we could have just spent $100 million on this dude, and it would have been way more efficient, way less law breaking, and I could get everything from this dude for 1/10 of the price.
Hi everyone, it's Skunk Paste here, and you may or may not have noticed, but I just received a business cut. What does this mean for the brand of Skunk Paste? Well, essentially it means you're going to be seeing a great new viral outreach burst of business-related content. What does that mean? It means viral approach, marketing schemes, theoretical distribution, employee relation management. Diabolical web overdrive, advertisement sensibility, outreach announcements, quantized distribution, online web content, pivotal techniques to increase your marketability and sales output, stock portfolio, tip trading.
What the fuck are we talking about here?
There's another one of their big ideas, or one of their big agenda items, is to look at all the waste and fraud that GAO has identified. They identified that there's $200 to $300 billion a year in improper payments. So if we find ways to utilize systems to reduce improper payments, there's potentially hundreds of billions there. But on the reductions in spending on the discretionary side, we are in the $50 billion, it should be reached without any problem. I have not seen updates outside of Treasury in terms of how much larger we could get once you go beyond.
Secretary, one other question I have before I let you go here, because even beyond what you might see in terms of money coming in and out the door for the U.S. government, you are seeing the bond market react. You're still seeing it react fairly significantly with the 10-year yield at about 4.5% as we speak, the 30-year at about 4.9%, yield still higher. How concerned is the Treasury Department that borrowing costs at the longer end of the curve are rising this drastically?
Right, so we did a 10-year auction and a 30-year auction earlier this week. Both of them had very strong subscriptions to it. We saw international...
Earlier this week? When did Trump announce all the tariffs? Or when did all the tariffs... Like, why are you retrospecting this? Hello? We're not talking about earlier this week. We're not talking about last week. We're talking about right now, motherfucker, and going forward.
Investors come in and continue to participate in that bond auction. And so we are seeing that markets continue to function well. We are seeing that there continues to be strong demand for Treasury securities. And so far we are monitoring the situation, but liquidity seems to be just fine in the bond market. And so as we generate realization of some of the negotiations that are going on.
Oh, he's referring to bond sales that happened yesterday. Okay.
We anticipate that that's going to continue to bolster demand for dollars and dollar-denominated securities and reduce some of the volatility that's currently in capital markets.
Is there a way to look up like historic bond yields in the U.S.? Here's another thing that needs to start happening, okay? Financial firms need to start hiring like economists or political analysts or something, all right? Because Fund managers quietly fear Trump doesn't have a tariff plan and that he might be insane. Actually, you know what? Never mind. It's not even that. It's not even that. It's not even that. It's not even really their fault. It is kind of their fault. The issue that people don't this is the issue that people don't realize. You just need a 4-year poli-sci major, a poli-sci grad, and hire this student. Give him like $120,000 a year because he's never getting paid more than that anywhere else ever. Okay, and just stash him away and dig him out of his box every time you need to ask him, hey, is stuff like probably going to work the correct way? And the guy can look at things and go like, yeah, stuff's probably going to work more or less, right? For Trump 1, yeah, stuff's probably going to work more or less, okay? But if you would have dug that poli-sci major out of his box for Trump 2, he might look at the situation and go, well, stuff ran well last time because there's a whole bunch of systems in place to make sure that things run well. But the guy that wanted to destroy all the systems last time but couldn't, this time coming in, he wants to expressly and explicitly destroy all the systems. Shit might be a little bit fucked this time. Shit might actually be kind of fucked this time. It would be good to have a guy like that on standby. Good memes, good times. Do you seriously believe that funds don't have economists and political consultants? If they were supporting Trump, thinking that the guy that was saying tariff on everything was a good move, then they either need to find new people or I'm streaming on YouTube right now. What gives you the impression that they were supporting Trump? Vibes. Maybe they weren't, actually. I don't know. One of the funny things is, like, historically, I guess, like, billionaires have even said... there was one billionaire... what was this guy's name? I think he did real estate investment in New York. There was a billionaire who said the economy just tends to do better under Democrats. Does anybody know who I'm talking about? Economy tends to do better under Democrats. Anybody know who I'm referencing here? Fuck, I don't remember the guy's... Maybe he was...
I've been now around long, I think of myself as a young guy, but I'm not so young anymore. And I've been around for a long time. And it just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. Now, it shouldn't be that way. But if you go back, it just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats
well,
than the
Republicans. It certainly did well under Clinton. But I wouldn't suggest it was so great under Jimmy Carter.
That's true. That's
if you remember
That's
the interest
true.
rates.
No, I know. It's Jimmy Carter was not in the same thing. But certainly we had some very good economies under Democrats as well as Republicans. But we've had some pretty bad disaster under the Republicans.
No.
There's a school system that's going to start making sure that first graders or even pre-Ks have A1 teaching, every year starting, that far down in the grades. And that's just that's a wonderful thing. Kids are sponges. They just absorb everything. And so it wasn't all that long ago that we're going to have internet in our schools. Woo! Now, okay, let's see A1 and how can that be helpful? How can it be helpful in one-on-one instruction? How can it be helpful in absorbing, more information for those fast learners? It can be more one-on-one directed. And those are the kinds of things and innovations that I want to see continue to develop.
Bro, I can't. It's we're cooked. The United States is over, bro. What the fuck? And not even for like a good ass reason. That's the most embarrassing part. Or maybe I need to read. There's so much I need to read. I wish I could just beam knowledge into my brain. Why did Rome actually fall? Maybe Rome got bored and fell as well, and it wasn't a big dramatic event. Everybody wants to compare shit to like World War II, but I feel like the world was in such a state of chaos at post World War I. I get it, at least a little bit, right? You show me the Nazis, you show me Germany, World War II. It's like, I get it. I understand. But people looking back on this era in the United States, how the fuck are economists, are political scientists, are people that do culture, how are people going to explain why the fuck did the United States self-destruct? Why did they pull the trigger and blow their own country up? Well, you got to understand, I don't even know what you could say. So they reelected Trump, who was impeached twice and tried to overthrow the government, right? Yeah. Nobody saw that as kind of like the beer hall putsch a little bit, kind of? No. Why not? Well, prior to this, a bunch of progressives used the word Nazi too much. And so conservatives no longer believed that anybody could ever be a dictator ever because of that. Oh, okay. You need to see it through Hananiah's low human capital framework. Yeah, I just don't speak to that very much because it's an incredibly, it's like a very liberal elitist take. I do believe it 100% though. There are structural reasons why educated people are probably more likely to be Democrats, not necessarily having to do with being smarter, but just because if you go to school and you're part of an educated system and then you go to work at a more structured job, you're probably more likely to kind of have some kind of faith in the system or institutions or whatever. But there's a byproduct of that, and that education selects for or creates or some combination to smarter people. It just does. And one of the big issues that conservatism has right now, Richard Hanania uses this phrase a lot on Twitter. I don't say it again because it just sounds mean, but the conservative party right now, MAGA, has an issue with low human capital in that a lot of people in the MAGA movement are just fucking retards. They're stupid. They're lower IQ, generally stupid people. They don't understand how the world works. And as a result, they're more prone to conspiratism or conspiratorialism. They're more prone to dick sucking a dictator. They're more prone to hearing a guy like Elon and going, oh my God, that guy must be so smart. Wow, he has rocket ships. And being impressed by things like nicknames from the president for other world leaders, and that it's a significant issue that the MAGA movement would have to confront. And I guess now we're seeing the results of that. Now we're there. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Heat Gorakia. Thank you for the donation. Have you read Why Nations Fail? No. What is the tornado currency again? To USD. Oh, Indian rupees. Fuck off, stop. Oh, God. Pig-related fast meme. How is that different from other times in history, though? What makes that so significant now? Right now, conservatives in the past weren't idiots. Like I said, like we make fun of Bush, but wasn't even Bush was he a Yale graduate, or where did he go to school? Jesus, undergrad at Yale, MBA at Harvard. Like conservatives spoke the. Oh my God, it's oh fuck. I don't know if it's a real Voltaire quote. What's that saying? Like if you make a joke that only appeals to idiots, eventually you'll be surrounded by idiots or something. Do you know what I'm saying? Or what is the full quote that I'm thinking of? Conservatives spent so much time trying to appeal to dipshits that I don't think they realized they allowed themselves to become infiltrated by the dipshits. Is that Poe's law? It might be. In a way, I think it is, yeah. Basically, if you make a bunch of racist jokes online for a long time, eventually you're going to be surrounded by an audience of people that are actually racist. I think conservatives maybe spent too much time appealing to people who probably needed to be educated a little bit better or move in a different direction, but promised them that they didn't have to do that, and now they found themselves in a situation where they're owned by those people. God, fuck, dude. I listen to like this dude talk. He is a smart dude. I hate, God, my country. What the fuck? You know what conservatives have turned into? What? Oh, no, wait. Fuck, can I find this quote?
Now we got...
Oh, no, transcript.
Posted dip. I wish they let me join the club, man. More than 3.
Was it part of the skit? It might have been, actually.
Just ask a nigga a question.
It feels like there's like an actual pushback. Like if you go to college, you're an idiot. Like don't go to college, you'll be indoctrinated. Like if you like any of this stuff is just for losers. Like it's all about common sense. Like it is in a very weird way. It feels like it's wrapped around to that, where that is kind of what MAGA like symbolizes. And then in the next breath, they expect somehow all of our STEM universities and everything else are going to be thriving and. Despite proclaiming that Trump is an existential problem for the U.S., you're sitting around complaining instead of going out and doing something. Not meant a criticism. I think that's what the majority of people. What do you want me to do? What the fuck? What can I do? Listen, I scream about people online. Okay, I've funded shit in the past. If there's like big movements or if there's a big thing that we can do in the future or whatever, I'll find something to fund. Or I'll find a thing to organize or whatever. But right now, I don't think there's fuck all you can do besides voting in the upcoming elections. Right now we're in the raising awareness stage. Any concern about the next Fed chairman being a Trump loyalist? If he finds a way to fire the head of the Federal Reserve and appoint a loyalist, it's over. Like at that point where it's like, then the U.S. economy is 100% donezo. We're fuckerinoed. Why aren't 10 to 20 million people on the streets in front of the White House? I mean, there was a huge protest a few days ago, right? I feel like a lot of people were out doing that.
It's just transparent. He's also trying to market this as the fact that he paused the tariffs, and he absolutely did not. He canceled the reciprocal tariffs, but we are still, as Dana said, tariffing the entire globe 10%, even the people that we have.
Thank you. And I should have corrected myself. I shouldn't have even said that earlier. And I'm a dumb fuck for saying that. I shouldn't have said that earlier. We did not cancel the tariffs. We just lowered them back to the 10% worldwide tariffs that are still fucking insane.
Globe 10%, even the people that we have good relationships with, like Australia. And there was questioning of Jamieson Greer, our trade representative, earlier.
What does Hanania mean by low human capital? Is that a dog whistle? he means that the average conservative is of lower IQ, lower G, lower intelligence than the average liberal. And that for some reason, like conservatives used to accuse the lowly black man in America of doing, they idolize and epitomize the uneducated common man. They do that. They're this person. It's MAGA communism.
Deputy Secretary Garanin.
But I've been assured there is no problem.
I'm telling you that there is.
I prefer my opinion to yours.
I'm a nuclear physicist. Before you were Deputy Secretary, you worked in a shoe factory.
Yes, I worked in a shoe factory. And now I'm in charge. To the workers of the world.
It's this, except from the top down, unironically.
And there was questioning of Jamieson Greer, our trade representative, earlier this week about why we're possibly doing that, and he had absolutely no answer for it. The Yale Budget Lab just came out with new figures based on yesterday's tariff numbers that says that this will cost each American household $4,400. This is the highest tariff rate since 1909.
Who came up with that?
The Yale Budget Lab.
Oh, not the Yale Budget Lab.
Like, he's doing it! He's doing it right here! What?
Yale Budget Lab.
Oh, not the Yale Budget Lab.
Oh, I'm sorry that I didn't pull it out of a cartoon or something wherever you got
we'll
your
see
point.
it tomorrow everywhere else.
No.
The Yale
fine.
Budget Lab.
Why are you making fun of smart people that calculate things? The economic.
Nothing will make a MAGA happier than not knowing the answer to your question.
Oh, not the Yale Budget Lab.
Oh,
Did Trump just get mad that he got pushback from Republicans in 2016, and now we get a bunch of yes men that basically fix his problems about not being able to do anything he wants? Yes and no. What happened was in 2016, Donald Trump, and to this day, doesn't know how government works. He has no clue. He's like, oh, the president must be like the emperor. He can do anything, right? He has no fucking idea. He doesn't know. That's why when Joe Rogan asked him the question, hey, what's it like being the president? Like, what do you actually do? He had no answer to the question. He was talking about how long the bed was in the White House, or that Abraham Lincoln slept in. That's all he could answer. But coming in this time, he realized, okay, well, government is complicated and there's a lot of jobs that the president has. So I don't need Republican or hardcore conservative loyalists. I need cult followers, because even people as strong as Bill Barr aren't enough. And it's if you look at the first admin and the names that were in that first administration, your Pences, your Faucis, even your Bill Barrs, your Rex Tillersons, your General Mattis's, like this is like a superstar cast from Trump 1 compared to Trump 2. Like it's literally all stars compared to the fucking retards that are now staffing this admin now that have pledged full fealty and loyalty to Donald Trump and will do whatever he wants. Tariffs 101. Tariffs are tax and increases the price of goods. Tariffs are tax and increase the price of goods. I wish I could read. Good one. True. Destiny, quote, there is a cult of ignorance in the United States. The notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. True. Read the last line of the tweet. No, Gutfield doesn't prefer a different numerical analysis. Low human capital just thinks numbers are funny. True! Well, when they don't agree with them. And this guy on Fox News who's making fun of the Yale numbers department, this Gutfeld guy, went to a Roman Catholic high school and graduated from Berkeley with a bachelor's in English. Unreal. Oh, somebody found the article. Oh, this is one of the ones I saw, the meme article. I don't know if this is true or not, but I want it to be true. Carney's checkmate, how Canada's quiet bond play forced Trump to drop tariffs, okay? I don't know if this is 100% true. I want this to be true, though, okay? Let's talk about the moment Donald Trump blinked. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a tweet storm or a rally rant. When the tariff threats that had the world on edge, 125% on China, 25% on Canada's autos, a global trade war in the making, suddenly softened. A pause, he called it, a complete turnaround from the chest thumping of the past week. And the reason? Mark Carney and a slow, deliberate financial maneuver that most people didn't even notice, the coordinated Treasury bond slow bleed. Trump caves, orders a 90-day pause on all tariffs while increasing China's tariff rate to 125%. This wasn't about bravado. It was about leverage, cold, calculated, and devastatingly effective. Trump's pause wasn't because people were getting yippee.
You started the morning saying be cool, and just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents, they wouldn't have done it.
Rewind a bit. While Trump was gearing up his trade war machine, Carney, Canada's prime minister, wasn't just sitting in Ottawa twiddling his thumbs. He'd been quietly increasing Canada's holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds, over $350 billion worth by early 2025, part of the $8.53 trillion foreign countries hold in U.S. debt. On the surface, it looked like a safe play, a hedge against economic chaos, but it wasn't just defense, it was a loaded gun. Carney didn't stop there. He took his case to Europe, not for photo ops, but for closed-door meetings with the EU's heavy hitters, Germany, France, and the Netherlands. Japan was in the room too, listening closely. The pitch was simple. If Trump went too far with tariffs, Canada wouldn't just retaliate with duties on American cars or steel. It would start offloading those treasury bonds, not a fire sale, nothing so crude, a slow, steady bleed, a signal to the markets that the U.S. dollar's perch wasn't so secure. This was a tweet, Trump on why he announced a tariff pause. I thought people were jumping a bit out of line. They were getting a little bit yippy. Some guy responded, Canada's PM got an agreement with the UK and France to dump American bonds if the tariffs continued. He then warned Trump on their call that the US dollar would drop like a brick. Trump pauses tariffs today after watching the bonds market last night. Boom. Here's a brief explainer about treasury bonds and why Carney encouraged other countries to follow Canada's lead and why it worked. How treasury bonds work and why a global sell-off could tank the U.S. Treasury bonds are IOUs that the government issues to borrow money. Countries, banks, and investors buy them, lending cash to the U.S. The U.S. promises to pay back the loan with interest over time. Who owns them? Foreign countries hold $8.5 trillion of U.S. debt. Big players, Japan, $1 trillion plus, Canada, $350 billion plus, EU nations, $1.5 trillion combined. They buy bonds. They buy bonds to park money safely and earn steady interest. How do they affect the U.S.? The U.S. uses this borrowed cash to fund everything: military, Social Security, tax cuts. Cheap borrowing keeps the economy humming. The government spends more than it collects in taxes. What happens in a coordinated sell-off? If countries like Canada, Japan, and the EU start selling bonds together, even slowly, a flood of bonds means too many bonds hit the market at once, the price drops, more supply than demand pushes bond prices down, interest rates spike. When bond prices fall, yields rise to attract buyers. You understand this last part, right? If the U.S. Treasury wants to sell debt, well, if there's a market that's flooded with bonds, then the Treasury has to offer better rates, otherwise people are just going to go and buy the cheaper bonds that are on the market, right? Why does this hurt the United States? Borrowing gets expensive. Higher interest rates means that the U.S. pays more to borrow. The debt snowballs. The U.S. owes $34 trillion already. Pricier loans make it harder to manage. The dollar weakens. Selling bonds means dumping dollars, so the currency's value drops. How does this cause a depression? Spending dries up. Government cuts back as borrowing costs soar. Fewer jobs, less aid. Businesses tank. Higher rates choke loans. Companies can't expand or hire. Imports cost more. A weaker dollar makes foreign goods pricier, jacking up inflation. And markets crash. Panic hits stocks and banks as confidence in U.S. debt fades. The domino effect, jobs vanish, prices spike, savings erode, classic depression triggers. A slow, coordinated sell-off isn't a bluff. It's a quiet gut punch that would take the U.S. years to recover from. And here's the kicker. Canada wasn't alone. Japan, holding over $1 trillion in U.S. debt, signed on and started to sell those U.S. Treasury bonds, which scared Trump shitless. Key EU countries, collectively sitting on another $1.5 trillion, nodded in agreement. This wasn't a bluff. It was a silent pact. A coordinated move to remind Trump that the free world doesn't just roll over when he swings his tariff bat. hurt us, Carney said, and will hurt you right where it counts. The U.S. Treasury market is the backbone of the global economy. Foreign holders like Canada, Japan, and the EU keep it humming, financing everything from America's military to its tax cuts. Start selling those bonds in unison, even gradually, and the yields spike. The dollar wobbles, borrowing costs climb. Suddenly, Trump's beautiful bond market, he bragged about it just yesterday, looks like a house of cards in a stiff breeze. That's the message Carney delivered in his call with Trump last week. No leaks on the exact words, but the outcome speaks volumes. Trump didn't just pause the tariffs, he backpedaled hard. China's still in the crosshairs. 125% duties are no joke, but Canada, the EU, Japan, they're off the hit list, for now at least. Why? Because Carney's play wasn't noise, it was power. Let's be real. Trump spent years calling Canada a freeloader. Remember his 2019 NATO jobs? While ignoring the inconvenient truth. Canada's $350 billion in U.S. debt isn't charity, it's a lifeline. Japan's $1 trillion plus, same deal. The EU's pile, ditto. These countries aren't just buying bonds to be nice, they're bankrolling the United States government. And when they threaten to pull the plug, even slowly, Washington listens. This was the determining factor in Trump's surrender. Not the public spats, not the retaliatory tariffs Canada slapped on U.S. autos, though those stung. It was the quiet, coordinated threat of a Treasury bond unwind that bent Trump's knee. Carney didn't need to shout, he didn't need to posture. He lined up the free world, Japan, the EU, Canada, in lockstep, and showed Trump the cliff's edge. Strategic brilliance doesn't get louder than that. Carney also issued Canadian Treasury bonds in USD, which was another brilliant way to strengthen Canada's position and financial reputation. Oh, because I think when they issued these, I think it did show there was a decent demand for investment, I think, in Canada. I think their results from this were pretty good. Little triggers and strategies you get when the world's most respected economist is your prime minister. When Trump announced his tariff pause, it wasn't a victory lap. It was a concession. Carney moved markets without firing a shot. Blah, blah, blah. But I don't know 100% how much is true, but I want it to be true. Okay. Fox News anchor also said something similar. Yields don't rise to attract buyers. They mathematically have to rise if bond demand falls. Why? I don't know. I don't understand that. Why? Let me check. I know the Metalite is saying that it's wrong. The last 5 times he's come into Discord to correct me on something, it's been the exact same thing. It's just been a well-actually point where more or less it was the exact same thing that I just said, just stated differently, okay? That's great. I understand he disagrees, okay? He can explain it on his stream, okay? Jesus. Okay, wait.
I want to tell you right now that Donald Trump outsmarted the world. Trust me. I'm an American. I support my president. But that's not really what happened here, from what I understand. And I know I'll get pushback, but here's what it is. First off, we should point out that one of the good things about this is that Scott Bessent is finally in the White House. He's finally leading this. I mean, up until a couple of days ago, it was Lutnick, it was Peter Navarro. My
only question on this is, who is the source for the article? Because Rand himself is a normie journalist, from my knowledge. And is there a source for any of this? I guess the source would be, so one thing that I'm holding back from you, because like I said, I want to believe it's real, and I want you to believe it's real, not really, is I think I did some reading in the idea that I don't think Canada actually did sell any of their U.S. Treasury bonds. They only listed some Canada Treasury bonds. They listed those in USD, but I don't think Canada unwound any of its U.S. Treasury things. I don't know about Japan, though. Japan might have started to sell T-bonds, but maybe we'll see what this guy says right here.
Lutnick, it was Peter Navarro, the Commerce Secretary, the Trade Advisor, very much hawks. Now it's Scott Bessent, who believes in cutting deals as opposed to, just just putting these tariffs out there and let's be a mercantilistic economy. That's number one. But number two, let's recall what happened overnight. And from what I understand, and I'm getting this from people that are talking to the White House, what happened in the bond market overnight, the spike in yields on the 30-year and the 10-year bond, which showed that people were dumping our bonds. And who were those people dumping our bonds? Japan, the biggest holder of bonds, was selling bonds.
It's crazy. And again, this is it has to be no understanding of economics, I guess. Admittedly, I don't understand much about treasury bonds in the international bond market. I didn't understand anything about it yesterday. My understanding is now very surface level at best. But I'm also not running the world economy or running the U.S. economy, so I would hope those people know more. It seems crazy to point a loaded gun at Japan if Japan really does hold $1 trillion in foreign treasury bonds. That seems wild to me, but...
Japan, the biggest holder of bonds, was selling bonds. That's what I'm getting from some very big money managers. China, maybe to some extent, but it was largely Japan and others. If you have a mass sale of bonds, that means people are losing confidence in the U.S. economy, on the ability to do deals with us. And from what I understand, this is what forced the hand of this 90-day reprieve. Now, is it a good thing? Are people coming to the table? Yeah. But if you read between the lines, or not even what Scott Bessent said, we have no deals, right? There's nobody that is really there saying this is what we're going to do. And they paused it anyway. So my thing said, well, I'll give you this. There is some art of the deal here. And by the way, brilliant move by putting China in the corner. But that's a whole separate thing. Because remember, that's a very difficult negotiation. Everybody else is a lot easier. They do want to deal with us. Whether they want to be, forced into really bad trade deals on their end is a whole other negotiating story. But make no mistake about it, you cannot divorce this decision right here from what happened last night, which was, people focus on the stock market all the time. It's the bond market and the sort of lending markets that's the plumbing of the economy. And those markets were imploding last night. And that's why we have a 90-day freeze. Let's see if those markets improve. Someone told me we had a decent treasury auction today. But if you can't sell your treasuries, guys, and people are unloading your treasuries, like Japan, which is, I believe, the largest foreign holder after China.
Just to be clear, there was an auction that...
Yeah,
Fuck, hold on. I have to talk to Connor soon. What is this? Hold on.
And forecasting, you're essentially peering into the future with actionable data. When you're closing your books in days instead of weeks,
you're
spending less time looking backward and more time focused on what's next. For any business owner looking to streamline their operations, NetSuite is the solution I'd recommend. Whether your company's earning millions or even AI, tweet
for you, maybe
BP.
And so that's going to be no flights for you and no clothes for you, maybe 3 changes of clothing per year, only a short-haul flight every 3 years, for example, a radical reduction in the amount of meat that you eat, a radical reduction in private car ownership. And you might think, well, that's paranoid conspiracy theory, but you can go look at the documents of the C40 coalition of the top cities in the world and look at their aims for the next 20 years, and you can decide if they're on the same side as Carney or whether they're on your side, and you can draw your own conclusion. Because if your presumption is that the planet is facing an environmental catastrophe because of carbon dioxide production, and that that's such an emergency that we have to do every possible thing we can with every financial decision, no matter how much it costs to ameliorate it, then there's no limit whatsoever to the amount of power that you're willing to expend to make that happen. And we know it'll happen because it's already happened to Germany and the UK, and it's happened to a large degree to Canada. And there's no reason to assume at all that Mark Carney is a leopard who's changed his spots. Quite the contrary. And so what's the conclusion?
Why does it feel like all the 2010 political voices now have schizophrenia? Because all of them fell into the issue, okay, that I identified in Musk and Peterson a few years ago. I don't know how long it's been now, but all of them have this issue where somebody thinks that because they're good in one area, they're magically an expert in everything without even doing the slightest bit of research. There's zero epistemic humility. There's zero, overall knowledge humility. They just think that they can speak with great confidence on every single thing, even when they're standing against an entire field worth of experts saying a particular thing, right? The entire field thinks this. You're taking a contrary position to the whole fucking field? What the fuck? What's going on there, buddy?
Mark Carney is a leopard.
Again, I just... people attack me sometimes for things they shouldn't attack me for. And people give me credit for things sometimes that they shouldn't give me credit for, okay? When I'm watching shows and we're watching somebody smart and we're watching somebody and I'm able to predict what they're saying, it's not because I have 190 IQ and I'm just so fucking smart that I know exactly blah, blah, blah. It's just because I know, roughly speaking, this is what experts in this field think, right? You can read one article and have assuming you're reading from a good publication, or read one paper and you're like, okay, this is about what the field thinks about this particular thing. And then when you listen to somebody who's intelligent speaking about it, it's he's probably gonna say roughly what the field thinks, right? That's it. It's not that hard. Okay. Now, if you want to take a contrary position, I'm not saying that contrary position is always bad, but there's an amount of due diligence that should be done there in order to justify you holding that contrary position, right? There's a lot of stuff that comes out from the UN or other countries about Israel, for instance, that I don't agree with, but I've done a significant amount of reading into all of the fucking UN reports that I criticize, or the aspects of international law that I don't agree with them on, and I can engage in that analysis rather than just this stupid I am wearing a pinstripe suit and I think that this is wrong because And I can steal them on the other side as well. Like, I can give arguments for both sides. I can tell you why, some person might argue this particular thing. These guys couldn't even. They're hopelessly lost. They are hopelessly adrift, okay, at sea. It's just unbelievable how stupid these people are. Peterson especially. These people have gotten so big for their britches, and they have no humility at all when it comes to speaking about other fields.
Who's changed his spots? Quite the contrary. And so what's the conclusion with regards to his pedigree? It's like Mark Carney's an educated person and he's no fool, but he's completely untested in the electoral domain, and he obviously has contempt for it because he's willing to be prime minister and to act like a governing prime minister, despite the fact that he's never put his policies to test in front of the Canadian electorate, despite the fact that only 130,000 people have positioned him as prime minister, and despite the fact that he's apparently willing to deceive Canadians about being an outsider, which he most certainly is not, and with regards to his actual aims, which is net zero by 2050, and he's willing to claim the contrary because he's going to turn Canada into an industrial powerhouse. So that means he's either wrong about everything he's believed in the last 20 years, and radically so, or he's lying because he thinks the emergency justifies it, and maybe because he's after power. Now let's investigate that a little bit. So,
like Carney could literally talk to me about anything, and I would believe him over Peterson on anything. It's insane to me that some of these people are just so unbelievably just stupid. Like when I was arguing with Peterson, he brings up VAERS, and it's like, that you could do. I'm at the point now for subjects where I'll make fun of people for reading Wikipedia. But like, if you just read Wikipedia on this, it would drastically improve your knowledge. Like, you should become a wiki warrior because it is a significant improvement to where you're at right now, my friend. Please, just go and read the first paragraph. I don't know if it's on my subreddit or I saw there was a clip of Peterson like crying on Piers or whatever recently, I think.
The opportunity for Canada and the United States to have that comprehensive economic and security negotiation. I'm working hard every day to represent Canada at those discussions. And I'll say one last thing, if I may, which is, and I've mentioned this in my remark, the stakes have never been higher because it's not just about our trading relationship with the United States. It isn't an accident that I spoke to President von der Leyen today because there was an interest in deepening our trading relationship with the European Union, with the United Kingdom, with like-minded partners in Asia. And the question is, one of the big questions in this election.
He is talking to him base.
Is who's going to protect Canadians, but also who's going to represent Canada at those negotiations? Who's going to get the best deals for Canada?
Okay, wait. I got to run through these real quick before I talk to Connor. Wait. Boom, boom, boom. The DOJ is trying to cancel today's hearing and delay filing a response to the judge's order. This has to do with them filing. Basically, they need to tell the court what are they doing to get Garcia back, Abrego Garcia back, because the Supreme Court in a 9-0 decision came out and expanded Trump's asshole by about 4 inches in diameter, saying you need to bring this guy back to the U.S. On the filing, Drew Ensign, who argued the Alien Enemies Act case before Judge Boasberg. The 9:30 deadline has passed with no information from the Justice Department about Abrego Garcia's location or status, as demanded by the judge. She has not granted an extension, unclear if she will. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll retroactively grant one. Go read the pinned comment on that Jordan Peterson video. Fuck.
And forecast.
Hold on, I told Connor at 2 o'clock. To all you young men watching, make sure you vote. Talk to 2 friends. Tell them the same. It's your future. Don't let idiotically empathetic leftist women and old people wishing blindly for the past steal it again from you. Idiotically empathetic leftist women. Definitely helping the incel audience out there. Young men. Jesus Christ, bro. Nanos poll today. 51% of women prefer liberals, 29% conservative. Men, 47% conservative, 36% liberal. The age divide exacerbates this difference as older people in Canada lean liberal. This is likely because they misrepresent or misinterpret Carney as a moderate. Update. Abrego Garcia's lawyers urged the judge to reject the DOJ's efforts to delay. They say the government was under order for multiple days to begin facilitating Abrego Garcia's return prior to Chief Justice Roberts' stay order on Monday. Just in, Judge Zinis grants the government a partial extension to 11:30 a.m. Ooh, damn. We've arrived at 11:30 with no response filing from the Justice Department yet. Hearing still set for 1 p.m. DOJ says it won't comply with Judge Zini's order because the deadline, she said, is impracticable. Defendants are unable to provide the information requested by the court on the impracticable deadline set by the court hours after the Supreme Court issued its order. The Supreme Court's order directs the courts to clarify its directive with due regard for the different... Oh, my God. The DOJ's position ignores Zinni's request for information about steps that the administration has already taken, not just the ones it might take in the future. Zinnis now asks for update on Abrego Garcia's current physical location and custodial status. Ensign, we are still internally reviewing the Supreme Court's decision and vetting what we can say to this court. Oh my God. What do you mean? This is a very direct question. Ensign says he has not been told where Abrego Garcia is. Zinnis is frustrated, says this is basic information that she ordered to be provided. I do not have the information provided to me. Zinnis is now demanding details on what the administration has done to facilitate his release. The defendants are not yet prepared to share that information. That means they've done nothing. Zinnis wants a yes or no answer to whether the administration has done anything whatsoever to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release and return. The answer is no, because the government's trying to figure out a way to not comply with the order. That's what's happening. That's, by the way, in case the judge knows, everybody knows. Ensign continues to say he has no information. Zinnis notes the Supreme Court said the admin should be prepared to provide info, but they aren't. The Supreme Court has spoken quite clearly on a 9-0 decision, by the way, and yet I can't get an answer. Ensign says the government can be prepared to file something by Tuesday, but that responses may include assertions of privilege. Zinnis, we're not going to slow walk this. We're not relitigating what the Supreme Court has already put to bed. We read the Supreme Court's order differently. Lawyers for Abrego Garcia says the Trump admin is playing games, depriving the DOJ of information the court has demanded. They want her to demand testimony from officials in the know. Zinnis seems reluctant for now, says she may do a very quick briefing order. Zinnis says she will demand daily updates from the government. We're going to make a record of what, if anything, the government is doing or not doing. Says she'll rule as quickly as she can, and the hearing is over. Judge Zinnis will require daily updates from the government on 3 things: Abrego Garcia's location and status, what efforts it has previously undertaken to get him back while her order was in effect, and what efforts it may take going forward. Damn. Okay. We're listening to this. I'm going to use a restroom real quick, and then I'm talking to Connor.
President of El Salvador is coming to the White House. Real quick, the President of El Salvador is coming to the White House on Monday. Does President Trump want him to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia with him?
The Supreme Court made their ruling last night very clear that it's the administration's responsibility to facilitate the return, not to effectuate the return. I believe the Department of Justice just filed another brief in the lower court. I would defer you to that for any updates. But as you mentioned, President Bukele will be here at the White House on Monday to talk about the cooperation that is at an all-time high. And we very much appreciate President Bukele and El Salvador's cooperation in the repatriation of El Salvadorian gang members who the previous administration allowed to infiltrate our country.
It's genuinely subhuman, despicable stuff. I stand by every comment. Pisco fought me on this, I think? Fuck him. I stand by every comment I made about the DACA stuff 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I stand by all those comments. And I think you would have been fully justified. Because look at what happened. What, now you're shipped off to a fucking labor camp in another country? I think I was 1,000,000,000% right on those comments. Let me use the restroom real quick and we'll talk to Red Bull and